Groundwater systems will also still be required to take the source water sample, the triggered source water sample under the groundwater rule. Surface water systems will just have to take the 3 repeats. Same upstream, downstream. So then we get into this concept of additional routines. So right now, folks are probably familiar with what we call our 4 or 5 letter. So you get a positive, you take 4 repeats this month, you take 5 samples the next month. Does that ring some bells for folks? So that's changing. That 5 goes away and is either replaced or eliminated entirely. So monthly systems, after the month after a positive sample. So you take your sample, you take your routine, it's positive. You take your repeats, you may trigger an assessment or not, whatever. The next month, you take your required number of samples. So if you sample once a month, the next month you take 1 sample. If you take the sample 3 times a month, the next month you sample 3 times. That 5 goes away. So quarterly systems, if you're taking 1 sample per quarter, you get a positive. The month following your positive sample, you need to take 3, what we're calling additional routine samples. So quarterly systems will take the routine, their 3 repeats, and then the next month we'll need to take the 3 additional routine samples. The quarterly system samples, those 3 additional routines must be taken equally throughout the month if it's at the same location, or it can be taken at the same day if there are different locations in the distribution system. Quarterly systems taking those additional routine samples need to keep taking those additional routine samples as long as they're getting positive results. So you take your routine sample month 1, comes back positive, you take your repeats. The next month you take your 3 additional routines. If one of those comes back positive, you take your repeats on that. The next month, automatically, you're taking 3 more additional routines. So those 3 additional routines need to be taken until they all come back clean, or until the system triggers themselves into increased monitoring, so into monthly monitoring. Clear as mud? We good? Right? I can go home now? We're gonna try to sketch this out a little bit, which, showing some examples and hypotheticals to hopefully make it some real world examples going through this. So we're gonna start at the beginning, right? Simple monthly system, taking a single sample. Take the sample, it comes back total coliform positive. Boom, 3 repeats. Same site, upstream 5, downstream 5. Just so happens in this instance, 2 of the repeats came back positive, and as we all know from paying diligent attention, there's more than 2 total coliforms in a month, therefore a site assessment is triggered. The next month, the system takes its normally scheduled program, right? 1 routine monthly sample. That's it. That one happens to come back total coliform absent. Great, super. Next month, take your sample. You're good. We're going to stress the importance of sampling early. So if you take this sample early, it gives you time to do your repeats. It gives you then time to do your assessment, which, if you're smart, you do your assessment before you sample again. If you know you have issues, why sample, right? So you sample early, you take your repeats on time, you do your assessment, you fix everything within 30 days, you've got plenty of time this month then to take your routines. That's what we want, that's what we want to see happen. To me, it doesn't make sense to take that routine sample month 2 knowing there's stuff out there. You haven't done your assessment, you don't have time to do your assessment because you took your routine on the 27th of the month, your repeats on the 29th, and it doesn't allow for the time to do that. So if that sample month 2 had happened to come back positive, then you would just repeat the same schedule as month 1, 3 repeats, upstream, downstream, same location. So this is a bigger system. System's taking multiple monthly samples. For this example, it takes 3 monthly samples. 2 of those samples come back positive, 1 comes back absent. Because of that, the system needs to take 3 repeats for each routine positive. So 6 repeats. Same site, upstream, downstream. Next site, same site, upstream, downstream. So in this instance, because there's 4, 5, 6, 7 samples in a month, that triggers a level 1 site assessment. So to be clear, it's not an assessment for every 2 that are exceeded or anything like that. Essentially, at the end of the month, we take all your positives, we add them all up. If it's 2 or more, you're doing an assessment. The next month, the system goes back to normal monitoring, 3 routine monthly samples. Just so happens this system wasn't able to get the assessment done on time, had some issues, had some more positives, things are going on. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 positive samples. This triggers a second assessment. So you still have to do the one from this month, and this now would be a level 2. If this is the second level 1 in 12 months, it's a level 2. So this is more serious. The state or a contractor is going to have to go out and assess your system. It means you're having repeated issues, widespread problems that we don't want to see. So because the site assessments were triggered because of different events, so in month 1 it was those samples, in month 2 it was these samples. Because of that, the system needs to perform both assessments. Doing the level 2 in month 2 doesn't supersede or cover the requirement to do the level 1. So the operator will still have to go out and do the level 1, either while or before the contractor goes out to do the level 2. An important thing to note is that we cannot waive the requirement to do any samples, right? So like, you can't say, oh, we already triggered an assessment, why do we have to sample? It's not up to us. So in month 1, you've got 2 already before taking your repeats. Pretty good chance your repeats are going to come back positive. Even if they don't, you're still doing an assessment. We can't waive the fact that these were triggered. You have to do those samples. We can't waive any requirements to do these sets of samples. All right, so now we get into quarterly monitoring. So these are the non-community, so NTNC and TNC systems on groundwater under 1,000 and under in population are eligible for quarterly monitoring. Month 1, they take a sample, comes back coliform positive. And then you take the 3 repeats, upstream, downstream, same site. And then, of course, as I neglected to say in the last few slides, trigger groundwater source sample for the groundwater systems. If any of those repeats come back positive, the system will trigger an assessment. Then, because you had a single positive routine sample, the next month you need to take those 3 additional routine samples. If any of those are positive, you need to take 3 repeats on each of them. Okay, so it's the same logic applied to those routine samples. In month 3, if there are no samples in month 2 that are positive, if all those come back clean, month 3, you resume regular monitoring. Well, actually, you could skip that month and be month 4 in the next quarter, type thing. If any of these samples come back positive, month 3, the system will have to take 3 additional routine samples. And that can happen. If one of these comes back positive but the repeats don't, and you take the 3 this month and one of those comes back positive and the repeats don't, you can march all your way over to here until those samples are clean, or until you trigger increased monitoring. That's my time, my heads up. Thank you, perfect time. All right, I got a couple more of these and I will have some time for questions. So, quarterly monitoring, right? Another example, total coliform positive takes the 3 repeats. Month 2, total coliform positive takes the 3 repeats. Because there's more than one, there's 2 samples here, month 2, that are positive, it triggers an assessment. In month 3, if this assessment was a level 1 that was triggered, the system needs to take 3 additional routines. If that assessment was a level 2, remember the level 2 triggers increased monitoring. This system's now on monthly monitoring for the next year, at least, okay? Hopefully this is somewhat explained in those flow charts. This is a worst case scenario. This is a, let's call it a small campground with a bathhouse, right? There's a chance that a small system on quarterly monitoring will have to take at least 18 samples within a 2-month period before it's required to sample monthly and kind of gets out of this cycle of confusion, right? We do see this happening. It is possible. So because of this, we are allowing systems that are eligible for quarterly monitoring to sample on a monthly basis. And in doing that, you would eliminate the need to do these 3 additional routines. All you'd have to do is take your set routine sample every month. So it would eliminate these 8 samples if there's prolonged issues and repeated issues. If you're a system that you think that may interest you, so you don't have to take 18 samples in 2 months, let us know. We'll need to have written documentation that the system's opting to take samples on a monthly basis. Let it be known that we will not stop the clock here and say, okay, fine, you're a monthly system. Anything you trigger, anything that's initiated needs to be completed. So because of that, tell us here. before this all happens. We are not going to stop the flow of how this works. Just so you're aware, so this is an example with E. coli. So if this is a system taking a single sample, they get a total coliform positive, they take their 3 repeats, one comes back total coliform positive, one comes back E. coli positive. That's an E. coli MCL, that's a boil, and if you're a quarterly system, that means you're now sampling on a monthly frequency. Not to be confused with this potential example where you get a E. coli routine positive and then all of your repeats come back absent. That is not an E. coli MCL, that is not a boil, that is not increased monitoring. So the only reason this would be a boil is if you can't take your repeats within 24 hours. If you're able to take those repeats in 24 hours, it's sample error, it's a false positive, we're not gonna, you don't even have to post public notice because of that. So key takeaways, so this is basically what's on that other handout on your tables. RTCR goes into effect April 1st, 2016. Doing away with the total coliform MCL, the E. coli MCL remains. No total coliform-based public notice will be required, but the E. coli public notice still remains. Systems need to take 3 repeat samples for each positive. Systems sampling on a monthly basis can return to monthly monitoring the month following a positive. Systems sampling on a quarterly frequency will have to take 3 additional routines. Systems need to take each set of samples. We can't waive the requirement to take samples once you trigger them. 2 or more positive samples in a month triggers an assessment. E. coli MCL requires a boil in level 2, and then we're still reserving the right to apply a precautionary boil. So before April 1st, we've got a lot of online resources. The website has example sampling plans, YouTube videos, all that sort of stuff. Take a look at that stuff. Every system is required to submit a new plan. And then after April 1st, seasonal systems will be starting up under this, assuming they're a spring, summer seasonal system. They'll have to do seasonal startup procedures and then the startup form. Something to keep in mind is that, anything in March that happens under the total coliform rule needs to be resolved under the standards of the total coliform rule, regardless of when it happens after April 1st. So we're not going to turn the lights off on the total coliform rule and then the revised total coliform rule starts. If you take a sample on March 30th and you get a positive, you take your 4 repeats, and in April you take your 5 additional, 5 temporary routines, because that was triggered under the TCR. So there's going to be some gray and some overlap in these rules. So because of that, sample early in March. If you're a quarterly system, sample early in the first quarter. Get all that crap done, resolved, figured out, squared away before the RTCR goes into effect. Would make all of our lives much easier. Here's our contact info. I'm happy to answer any questions. We've got Julie, Nick, Meredith, and Jeff and David in the back there. We're part of the RTCR team, as we're affectionately referring to ourselves as. We're happy to answer any questions you have. I don't expect people to be experts on this walking out of a 45-minute talk. So we do have 3-hour presentations that we're doing in rural water, so check out their website for the schedule. I strongly encourage people to sit through that training also, because we go through sampling plans, sample sites, all that sort of stuff also. If you haven't seen it yet, we've got a cool new website, which Julie will be sticking around afterwards here. She'll pull that up. You can check your OPSERT hours, and you can check your water system data. We have the website's publicly available, so you can log on from anywhere. You don't need to access our database. And this will pull up real-time information as we have it and as we understand it. This is just a screenshot of our website to show some of the resources. So this is our YouTube video. These are the fact sheet that's on the table. And these are completed sampling plans. So if you haven't done your sampling plan yet and you're scratching your head a little bit, take a look. We've got some, about 5 or 6 completed examples for hypothetical systems. Hopefully that, makes things a little bit easier. And those are the acronyms. So, any questions? Yes. I didn't plant her, by the way. She just happened to be here.
NGNC on quarterly samples gets a hit, takes their 3 repeats, they all come back clean. The following month, they have to take 3 samples. It's in the next quarter. Does it count as their quarterly sample?
Yes. Yeah, they're routine samples. Those 3 the next month are routine samples. That was easy. What do you got? All right, how about those royals, huh? Nobody has questions. Anybody have issues with their system? They want, yeah.
Just a quick one. I take a coliform sample on my system, it comes up positive. So the next, our repeats, 5 taps upstream, 5 taps downstream. Do those have to be on our sampling plan?
Yes, that is a great question. Yes, thank you. Yes, so I didn't get into sampling plans, but on the sampling plan form, there's spots to write out your routine sample, the justification for why you're sampling there, and then upstream 5, downstream 5. Your samples need to be taken from sites that are written into your plan. So you can list all 5 up and all 5 down. You can list 1, but if you can't get into that 1, you kind of up the creek, right? So list, we encourage people to sample or to list 5 up, 5 down. Give you a little bit of wiggle room in case that person's not home or that person's a snowbird or for whatever reason. So yeah, any sample you take needs to be identified on your new plan.
How does that work if you have a seasonal campground and you've got RV units?
Well, so you'll only be sampling in the season that you're open.
Right.
So-
Still, if you take a hit somewhere, you gotta start knocking on the RVs
Yep.
or use an open spigot.
Yep. Yeah, so I usually preface this presentation with the fact that this rule is not friendly for pretty much Vermont. So this is a very big system approach to stuff. So campgrounds, RVs, stuff like that, it's not friendly to having, there are systems with literally 1 connection that we have, and it's a light switch next to a well with a split cap and the water comes out of. They will need to take their source water, their 3 repeats, their 3 additional routines, all that stuff out of 1. So if you have limited sites, we can talk to you about spacing the samples out during the day or over a couple days, things like that. Otherwise, it is going to be, knocking on a door or using a public, or an open bathroom, things like that. It can be tough. It can be difficult. We ask that when you're setting up your sampling plans, that you do a little bit of that thinking first, so that you can be like, you know what, I don't have any 5 that I can get into here. I need to move that up so I can get in. We understand that. We understand that operators have issues at homeowners associations or ski condos that nobody's home. So if you have an issue where I can never get into unit 15, they're on my plan, I always go to unit 16, make 16 your routine. So try to adjust accordingly in your plan. And if all hell breaks loose and you just can't sample, call Jeff, call David, work with us and let us know beforehand before you're taking samples so we know what's going on.
The operator submits a sampling plan, the new one by the first that doesn't hear from the state, and some time after that. Do you continue to use your old sampling plan, or because of the rule, you have to use the not approved?
Yeah, use the new plan. Yeah, that's why we started in September and October to get these out. We're really hoping not to have the rush at the end of March, even though we know it's going to happen. We now have a standing meeting every Wednesday for a couple hours to review and approve submitted plans. So if you get the plans into us now, we're likely to have much more time to call you and work through issues than just say, do it again. Because when it gets to March, you're going to get the buzzer and you're going to have to do it again. So yeah, if you don't hear from us, hopefully you'll hear from us soon, but sample under a new plan.
Ben?
Yeah.
How easy is it to revise your plan if you have to? I mean, a year from now you find out a property was sold that was one of your prime
Yep.
spots. Is the process is going to be straightforward for revising?
Yeah, sure. The forms are on our website, and it's part of the rule that you review and assess your sampling locations frequently. And if it turns out you can't get in there anymore, just send us a new plan. Take your existing spots, change that one around, and it should be fine.
You do have it planned out, and just say someone's not there, you would call you guys and say, can you switch it this month and go back?
Yep, yeah, if you know in advance, that'd be perfect. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you, Ben. Make sure everyone filled out for your operator certification, the sign-in sheet, and please do fill out the evaluation form.
In the back on the water table there's a list. If you want a copy of this presentation, I can email it to you. We have a copy of our full 3-hour training that's on our website right now. If you go to the main website, it's about halfway down. That's the full 3 hours. If you just want the abbreviated version, shoot me an email and I'll send you a copy. Or sign up and I'll send you a copy.